Hey friends, it's your boy KFD. Today we've got the old school USDM Hunter find for the day, Eichler housing. Now, Eichlers are mostly a Northern California housing staple. 11,000 Eichler homes were built around the Bay Area. Only about 350 or so are here in Orange County. There's three tracts. There's Fairhaven, Fair Meadow, and Fair Hill, I believe. And these were all built between 1960 to like 1964. Now, Eichlers are unique in that they were part of the post-war mid-century housing boom. Now, they weren't the first, they weren't the last, and they certainly weren't the most prolific. But one thing that separates these houses from the rest of the houses is the fact that they have architectural style. Now, you got to think, back in 1946, all these GIs returning home from the war, they needed a house, they were raising families. The father and son duo Levitts, they started the first Levitt town in a potato field in New York in 1946, and they actually revolutionized home building in the fact that they built houses in a semi-line style, but they didn't have much style. At this time as well, you had all sorts of the first subdivisions popping up. Lakewood, California, for instance, is another subdivision that popped up right after that popped up during the war, and that was just to house all the workers for the Douglas aircraft plant. But the one thing is, these houses, they all had the same load-bearing wall construction, and as Janis Joplin sang of little houses made of ticky-tacky, they didn't have much style. You enter Joseph Eichler at this point. Joseph Eichler was neither a home builder nor was he an architect. He was a very savvy businessman. In fact, he actually stayed in a Frank Lloyd Wright home, and I believe it was a Usonian house, but don't quote me on that one. And he got the bright idea of, what about taking style to the masses? And that's exactly what he did with a lot of these homes. Like I say, in Southern California, there's 5 different Eichler neighborhoods. The 3 here in Orange, one in Granada Hills, and another one in Thousand Oaks. But like I say, a lot of people associate Eichlers with being around the Bay Area because there's so many different. In fact, there's another Fair Meadow and Fairhaven tract up there as well. I think Steve Jobs actually, he didn't stay in Eichler, but he stayed in a house called a Leichler. Now, what's architecturally unique about these Eichlers, as you can see, there's not very many windows in the front. The high cellar-story windows, and you have a carport that highlighted the car, because that was something else. It was a big part of Southern California culture, was the automobile, and that put the car right front and center. Now, you can see there's an opening right there. These homes were unique too in the fact that they actually had an atrium in the middle. Now, the construction is completely different. As I briefly touched on before, these homes were known as post and beam construction. You can easily see the post right here and the beams, meaning the walls weren't load-bearing like those Levitt towns made of ticky-tacky. What that enabled was large windows. Now, of course, on the front of the house, you're not going to see those windows at all. But only going to see the high-level ones to let in light, let in ambient light and stuff like that. But the back of the homes are mostly all glass, and that's really what set these houses apart. Now, you got to think in the 1950s, 1960s, these had the two-way intercoms. They had wood paneling, like as you can see right there. You can see the paneling that is unique to the Eichlers. It's I believe it's Philippine mahogany. Don't quote me on that again. I probably should have done a little bit more research before I did the video, but c'est la vie. These houses also use a lot of mixed media. As you can see, there's brick, there's wood, and you see these brightly colored front doors too that kind of add a little visual pizzazz. Now, of course, people over the years have done additions, much like this one here. And people either love them or hate them, but a house is a house. You need to use it, so you can't really fault someone for that. It's their own house. It's their own house. Now, Eichler mainly used the architectural firms of Ammons and, is it Anshen Allen? Ammons, Joseph Ammons. I'm sorry. Let me try that one more time. Let's see. A. Quincy Jones, Claude Oakland, Ammons and Anshen, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head again. And they mainly used there's a few different types. I mean, you saw the lower roof like this. There's an A-frame. There's also the flat roof that had more of a transverse kind of I would say, transverse direction on the styling. Another thing too that's unique to the Eichlers is the fact that they actually have, when these homes were planned, they had the idea of community in mind, block parties. A lot of these homes, not so much here, but up in the Bay Area, and I think even in the Granada Hills tract, I'm sure someone can correct me on that one as well, they had like these centralized community centers, much like you'd see like a country club with a community center, or even some of these modern tracts that would have the recreational area that'll have like the pool or the tennis courts and stuff like that. And the homes are very conducive. These neighborhoods are very conducive to that. I mean, if you look at any of the Eichler documentaries, anything here on YouTube as well, you'll see there's people that talk about doing block parties and communal barbecues, and that's always kind of been the case. And something else too that was socially avant-garde that Joseph Eichler did was that he was one of the first tract owners. And there's a unique house. That's what I was talking about with the roof being a different direction. Most of the time you see like these low angled roof like that. I think that's a Claude Oakland. I think this might be an A. Quincy Jones. And I want to say it's an Anshen Allen, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Again, I'm sure someone else knows. But back to what I was saying, the Levitt towns, back from the mid 40s to the early 50s, were very racially segregated. Joseph Eichler didn't believe in that. And again, that might be part of the West Coast more. The West Coast ethos. The West Coast didn't have so much the Jim Crow thought process that the East Coast and the South did. And as a result, Joseph Eichler didn't believe in discrimination either. So anyone who could get a loan could get a house, and that was, again, a very different mindset than what a lot of these other tract home builders were doing. Another thing that's unique too about Eichlers is the fact that up in the Bay Area especially, Joseph Eichler employed a lot of prison workers. Now, it wasn't like slave labor. That wasn't his thought process. His thought process was taking some of these people who were these prisoners, these convicts, and teaching them a viable variable trade. And that's exactly what they did. And there's a lot of people who were incarcerated up in Discovery Bay in that area who actually went on to go have successful careers in home building and construction just by learning with these Eichlers. And again, these things are really, really unique too, because they've got the floor to ceiling windows. I mean, you've got the high level window right here that lets in a lot of light. There's atriums in the middle of them. And again, you didn't see a lot of houses doing that back in that time frame. But anyway, this is a very, very unique piece of what I've called and what other people have called California modern architecture. And I really hope that these houses will stay around for a long time, and they're really a neat piece of mid-century modern design, and again, very emblematic of I would say the prosperity and the hope of a generation, a society that is racing to beat the communists to the moon. Again, that's very, very emblematic of the cars as well in that time frame. They showed an optimism, is the word I'm looking for. And in this case too, it's wonderful because now that these were just another mid-century modern home, and now they're really starting to become popular again. More of these homes are being being restored. And while a lot of the original owners who are starting to die off, there's a new generation of people that want to restore these things and want to live in these things, myself included. I would love to own one of these homes one day. So anyway, that's your old school USDM Hunter find for the day. A little walk around of an Eichler Tract in Orange County. Thanks for watching, and remember everybody, follow your passions.